What we're having here today is not the culmination, but it's a step about a dream that I've had since I joined the Tea Party. I mean, John, you just come up and say the prayer. It's getting to me. Come on, open in prayer.
I can tell that our chairman is choked up already in thinking about his vision in his heart. Would you bow before the Lord with me, please? Oh Lord, we bow in head and in heart before you, realizing that for several generations we've gotten it wrong after you helped to get it right. We thank you for the visionary patriots who helped to launch this country. Father, with their families, often drowned in patriots' blood. Father, you helped us to get it right and put down the footings. We have been careless, Lord, but I see repentance coming. Without a change of heart and a change of direction, there's no hope, because you would be displeased with this country. But we know that in 2 Chronicles chapter 7, there was a promise to Israel that if a nation called by your name would repent, you would heal a nation. Lord, we would not say, God bless America, as a mantra. We would say, oh God, please bless America additionally. Please make our hearts stout today. Steel our resolve. Soften our hearts about our own personal situations with you. Help us to be real servants of our fellow man. And make our minds sharp for the next 2 hours. We pray it in Jesus' holy name. Amen.
Stand for the pledge, please. These things for one reason only, and that's to energize you into getting involved. Where's Inez? Where is she? The lady in the red hat. We were talking prior to this. She told me that she came out here and she saw something about the voter problems we're having, and it pushed her button. That's what we're after here, folks. All of these shows and all of these things that we put on, you call them shows, but the people that we invite here, if you don't go out of here and do something about it, all we're doing is wasted. It's up to you. We've hit some bumps this past couple of weeks with the Supreme Court and all the stuff that's going on there. However, if we are dependent upon the Supreme Court or somebody in Washington, D.C. or Sacramento or in City Hall to do what needs to be done, we're going to be sorely disappointed. We the people is how it gets done. We are the ones who are supposed to be putting pressure on these politicians, holding them accountable. That's what's going to change the direction of this country. That's why we do this. One of the efforts that we put forth here is a phone bank that we're going to. I'm going to call John's going to come up and talk about what he's going to ask, what he is asking, and what our purpose is. One of the things we're doing to get people energized. John, come on up, and I'll be back.
Friends, are you not amazed at the number of celebrities coming to our little country town? Isn't it amazing? Your applause is aimed right. A lot of effort goes into putting all this together. But it has a purpose, as Jim was indicating. How many of you think that we really get together to bring you sublime conservative truths so you can hug them to your chest and just think about them for yourself? Is that our mission? No. Our goal is to become truth dispenser units. As we were making our reminder calls this week, and let me tell you that it's a joyful thing to call all of you with reminders, because it's very obvious to me, and all of our callers are picking it up. You're looking to us for leadership and ideas, aren't you? Right? That's our role as leaders. We can't back away from it. We are going to ask you to do something very, very special between now and the election time. It's a way that most of you can have 10 times as much influence or wing spread to make Ramona TEA'd orbit of influence much bigger. Between now and the election, we're going to ask you to forward your reminders as you get them. And aren't they beautifully written by our friend John Z? They're brief and they're newsy. We're going to ask you to forward those reminders to 10 or 20 new people. But do not evaluate whether they are conservatives, liberals, Democrats, or Republicans. They are potential voters. The worst thing that we do, and almost all my friends do it, and I, in a gentle way, chastised a friend of mine named Jim yesterday. Said, Jim, you're inbred. You're inbred. You're sending these messages to all the same people. We all fall into that. It's fun, isn't it? That's just a group gripe session. Forget that. Push that aside. We're going to ask you to send this to 10 to 20 new people. Urge them to read this over, and if they go to Woody Kirkman's website, they're going to learn a lot. But don't you evaluate whether they're going to come or not, because most of them won't. You could pat yourselves in the back, friends. You're willing to put your legs where your mouth is. You're willing to come here and stand up, aren't you? Most people are too intimidated today, and they will not come. But remember, they vote in private. Ma'am, does that make sense to you? Your friends vote in private. They don't have to vote in public, so you influence them in private. Is everybody clear on the method? How simple this is? What did I just say? Somebody shout it out for me. Repeat. What is the method? Okay. Forward our professionally prepared reminder to everyone. Everybody except your most antagonistic family member. I said that for my friend back there, the silver stack, because he has a sister who's so far to the left she's ready to fall off the world. We all know somebody like that. This is the mission. Send it to her, Daisy. Yeah, that's a good one. Okay, friends, we're asking you to do that. Are you with it?
Yeah. John, one thing to add to your statement there, we already have posted on the RamonaTEA'd.com website flyers for next month's event, which is Socialism versus Capitalism, as well as our upcoming extra evening forum, an evening with Bridget Gabriel. So there's already posters that you can go to the website and download and hand out to your friends or post wherever you want. Let's post it on the website.
Woody, what we were suggesting is that people copy in the address of our TEA'd website and forward that to their address book. That's another wonderful method. It will take them to exactly what Woody's describing. And what is the web address, everyone? Ramona TEA'd, yep, www.ramonatea'd.com, and we'll do the work for you. Thanks, Woody. Thank you.
There's a group of about 10 folks who made a dedication 3 years ago to do something about what we saw coming. And every month, you see the culmination of those activities as we plan these things over and over and over again. And it's to get the message out to you. John has got another method for us to reach. One of the things that we have on this Ramona website is the total timeline for Gunwalker, Fast and Furious, that whole bit. Now we know that that came down and the Congress voted to, sorry, my head's going. Contempt on both the criminal and the civil. Well, we've already got the word from the Justice Department, no criminal intent. What a surprise, huh? Okay, so now we've got to keep the pressure on Congress to make sure they go out and hire a lawyer and take this thing along the line. Is there anybody there anybody here who has not looked at our Gunwater who hadn't been to our website? Go to www.ramonatea'd.com. and look at it. Right across the top of it, there's a yellow line, and it has the total timeline. We've been working over 2 years. If you had to read and watch everything on there, it'd take you a week and a half to see it. But everything is there. It's all laid out as to what happened with just that one thing. Now, a lot has happened this week. The Supreme Court has not give us warm and fuzzy feelings, you know. But here's something else you need to think about. The bottom line is that no matter, we cannot depend on the courts. We the people, that's where it's belong. Now, the Supreme Court has kicked Obamacare, the Affordable Health Care Act, back into our hands. What are we going to do about it? This is where it should be in the first place, but now we're going to take it and do something with it. Let's get busy between now and November. We cannot just concentrate on the president. We can't just concentrate on the Senate or the House, because there's a lot of entrenched bureaucrats who are taking these things and they get these laws which don't give them explicit directions, and then they start making the explicit things in there, which becomes law. EPA is a good example of those things. But this is what this health care bill can do. There's a lot of other things going out there. Brigitte Gabriel's coming here next month. Mike's going to be one of the speakers here in July on socialism versus capitalism. And then the following month, we're going to do one on the public service unions. There's a lot coming, folks, and we cannot just concentrate on one thing. Inez told me that was the thing that pushed her, was the voter fraud. You find something that you can get on and do it well. That's what's going to change the direction of this country. And spread it. Spread the word. Don't be worried that some people are not going to like. I've got lots of people who don't like what I have to say. One of them being my sister-in-law. He's like the lady John was talking about. She just cannot deal with it. She can't understand why myself or my wife would not have voted for Barack Obama. They can't deal with that. So that's fine. I don't care. I'm doing this because it's what I believe in my heart, and I've asked for and continue to be under the direction of my Father in heaven. Okay? Okay, I'm going to stop running off at the mouth. I know we're behind and all these things are going on, but I just had to be said. Mike Slater, come on up. Mike's going to MC the program the rest of the time.
America's the greatest country in the world. How are y'all? Thanks so much for being here. And thank you so much for having me back. I'd love that. Don't tell the other groups, but the Ramona Tea Party is my absolute favorite group. Lori, don't tell all the other groups that you're a part of. Don't tell them I said that. Thank you, brother. Yes, sir. Yes, sir, as always. I do it Ramona style when I come here. These are Dan Post, right? So I'm like middle of the road. I can't afford the nice stuff yet. How blessed are we? Right? It's been a crazy week, right? But we are beyond blessed. And as Jim was saying, it's now in our court, we the people, where it should be. Enough of leaving it up to 9 people in black robes to determine the future of our country. It should never have been that way in the first place. It's up to us, all hands on deck, now for 5 months. And if we want to repeal Obamacare, we got to repeal Obama, right? So I don't want to talk for long at all here, but I want to share one story here that I think is important before we get ready for the main theme of the day, which is so important, and that's outreach. 3 points with this one story. First of all, and to go along with what we've been saying here, who knows that person that is just still sleeping? And you're like, what is wrong with you? Right? Like, you just want to shake them and wake up. And you tell them like, oh yeah, you know, the U.S. government gave guns to Mexican drug cartels, and they killed a U.S. border agent with those guns, and they're like, Dancing with the Stars was good last night. And you're like, what are you doing, crazy person? So how do we wake those people up? Okay, how do we wake them up? And we've been exploring this on the show recently, and you may have heard me share this story. I've been reading a lot of psychology studies lately. I just to understand what makes people tick, right? What makes us tick? And I came across this study. I think it's so fascinating. It started in the 50s, and they've done it 1,000 times since, and the results are the same every single time, every single way. So this is what they did the first time. They would take a person. So imagine you're in this experiment, okay? You're in a room by yourself. There's a wall and an intercom connected to another person who's in another room. You can't see them, but you can talk to each other via the intercom. Got it? So you're in this room. You think the experimenter tells you that they're doing a study about whatever. It's a fake study. They made it up. They're really watching you and how you react to this situation. The person in the other room is an actor. Okay? So imagine you're the main person. I'm the actor in the other room. Okay? We go through this experiment. About halfway through, I, the actor, start to choke. I'm pretending to choke. Or sometimes I pretend to have a seizure. Right in the middle of the experiment. Imagine you're hearing me do this in the other room. You're all alone, though. There's no experimenters. The scientist, he says, hey, you start the experiment. I'll be across the hall in this other room here if you need me. Just come get me. I'll be right out there. Okay. So you're alone in this room, and the other person starts to choke. What do you do? Actually, I'm excited. I love coming to Ramona, too, because I see friendly faces here. And this gentleman right here, Paralympic gold medal champion. Let's hear it for that, first of all. And sir, I'm sorry, I forget your name, though. Steve. Steve, you're in this room by yourself. You hear me on the other side choking to death. You don't know I'm an actor. You think I'm really choking to death. What do? You like, hello, someone. You go outside the room and you call for the scientist. And you're like, hello, this guy's choking in the other room. That's what we would all do, right? And we would do it in about 2 seconds. Okay. They do the same experiment, but instead of you being in this room alone, you're in this room with 20 other people. Same experiment. You're talking to this other person, this actor, me in the other room. I start to choke. I'm choking. I'm dying. I need help. What do you think happens? They just look at each other. They look at each other for about 60 seconds before anyone does anything. They're listening to this guy, for all they know, dying in the other room. And they look at each other. So, after the experiment, they asked them why they didn't help. And there were two main conclusions from this experiment. The number one reason why people said they didn't jump up and help is because they thought that there would be someone else who was more qualified. They just assumed that someone in this group has to be a doctor. And someone here is a nurse. Someone here knows CPR. I don't, or maybe even I do, but someone's probably better at it than I am. Someone's probably stronger than I am. Someone can help out better than I can. So they didn't do anything. But when everyone does that, when everyone thinks that there's someone more qualified, no one does anything. But that same person, if they were in the room by themselves, they'd get up in a second and go call for help. But they didn't do it when they were in a big group. So from that, I conclude, if we can bring it to what we do every day, is we need to, and this is why I love the Ramona Tea Party so much, is because you guys aren't only interested in action, but you're interested in learning too. So what we need to do is go out, spread the word, and edify people, encourage people, build people up so that they feel like experts too. So that when our country is choking to death, they're the first people to jump up as well. Does that make sense? So we need to go out and edify people. I love that word edify, encourage, but edify I love so much because it has a spiritual connotation too. So it comes from the root word to construct. So you think of edifying our country, like building up our Constitution and our Declaration, but also like re-energizing the spiritual aspect of America as well, and our morals and stuff like that. So edify, I love that word a lot. So we need to go out and edify people so that they jump up in front of the group. That's point number one. Point number two, they did this experiment again, a little different, but they would go into a busy city street, busy city sidewalk, and they would have someone, me, I'll be the actor, walk down the sidewalk and collapse on the ground. Collapse right in the middle of the sidewalk. What do you think people did? Every single person would walk around. They notice them. I mean, how can you not see someone walk? They just walk by him, and they'd look and see if anyone else was helping. And no one else was. 20 minutes, 30 minutes, no one would help. Like me, I'm sitting in the middle of the sidewalk. Obviously, I need help. No one's helping me. Because in groups, It's interesting, people form social rules, even without talking to each other, but there's a social rule. And the social rule says, don't help, don't help, don't help, don't help, and no one's helping, so no one helps, don't help, don't help, don't help, don't help. So, about 20 minutes later, another actor, Jim, would come by and start to help. He'd just come by and be like, are you okay? Are you okay? As soon as that happened, everyone else started to come around and help. Isn't that amazing? Same thing when it was in the big group in the experiment room, right? No one would do anything. And as soon as someone broke the social rule that says don't help, don't help, don't help, don't help, as soon as someone ran to the door, everyone would run to the door. But it took 60 seconds before anyone did. And same thing in the street here too. So from that, I conclude that we need to break the social rule in our group, whether it's Ramona, California, America, that says don't get involved, don't get involved, don't care, don't listen, don't talk about politics, don't talk about politics. And we need to break that social rule and get involved, talk about politics, and spread the word. And people will follow. Who here is here for the first time? Or maybe I should say, first time, that's awesome. And also, I'm Mike, by the way. I don't know if we've ever met before. Nice to meet you for first timers here. Who here was brought for the first time, whether or not today or in the past, by a friend? Brought by a friend, family member. Like, come on, we need more of that. Hey, let's go to the main stage. I'm like, oh, midget wrestling? No, but just as good. Just as good as midget wrestling, I promise. And hopefully we don't disappoint them. I know we don't. So that's point number 2. Point number 3, I'm forgetting it this time, but it was brilliant. So just imagine that I said a brilliant thing. Oh, okay, I got it. Real quick, and then we'll go on with the program, I promise. So you talk to people, you talk to your friends, right? People in your circle. And you say, yeah, U.S. government gave guns to Mexican drug cartels that were used to kill a border agent, Brian Terry. And they're just like, yeah, we'll call him later. Like, what? And you tell them about the Obamacare decision. And they're just like, yeah, whatever. Right? You tell them about SB 1070 getting shot down. They're like, yeah, I'm busy. I gotta work. I'm tired. And then you're like, hey, did you hear that Mayor Bloomberg wants to ban 16-ounce sodas? What? What? This is an outrage. What do we do? Like, people freak out over the 16-ounce sodas, and you're like, what? Were you not paying attention to the drug cartel?
McDonald's has an answer to that. $1 any size.
Is that what it is? You solved that problem. But isn't that amazing? I'm like, why do my friends not care about the Mexican drug cartel killing border agents, but they care about the soda? What the heck is wrong with people? So what I concluded from that is people can relate to soda. People drink soda, they can relate to it. It's really simple. And they're like, here's my 25-gallon soda. How dare you take this away from me? But like border agent, I don't know. So we have to make everything as personal as soda. Everything has to be as personal as soda. So instead of saying, yeah, U.S. drug cartels, guns, border agent, imagine if your son was a border agent. And your son got killed by a gun that was given to him by the U.S. government. There you go. So he had no proper defense because we won't let him. And the U.S. government's not going to tell you about it. Oh. Okay, that's a different story. So those are my 3 challenges. Edify as many people as possible. Build them up. Encourage them with your morals and your intellect. Point number 2, be the leader. Get up and be that first person to break the social rule. You already are. You're here. And number 3 is make everything as personal as soda. Those are my 3 points. Let's get on with it. Yeah, all right. Woohoo! Oh, you're too kind. You're too kind. All right. You're not here to see me. Great event today. This is so important. And I've wondered, last time I was here, a month ago or so, I was struggling with this same question. And then I heard that you guys were talking about this month. It's perfect. How do we talk to other people? How do we go out and talk to other people, especially people who are different? Ooh. And I remember talking to Jesse Lee Peterson, and I asked the question, we talked to him on the air, and I said, Jesse, how do we talk to black people? And as soon as I said that, I'm like, what a stupid question. Like, you know what I mean? Like what a dumb, Like, I mean, of course, that assumes that different colored people are inherently different. Like, that's so stupid. So how do we get past that? That's really what we need to ask, because we're just talking to people. We're talking to people who have a heart and a soul, and people who live in America underneath that declaration behind us. So that's the question we're answering today. And we're focusing on two specific groups, but again, it's all people. So I want to introduce to the stage Dolores Chavez Harms, who is the CEO of the Chavez Financial Office. Is she here? There she is, right there. And also her claim to fame relevance here, particularly, is Dolores, correct me if I'm wrong, you are the chair of Hispanic Outreach for the Federated Republican Women of California. Of San Diego? Southern Division, that's what it is. Dolores Chavez Harms. Dolores. Nice to meet you.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me as I adjust myself here. My name is Dolores Chavez Harms. I am the Hispanic Outreach Chair for California Federated Republican Women. Can you hear me okay? Is this okay? Specifically Southern Division. I am Mexican and Spanish. That's why I'm tall. Has anyone today heard what the polling is? The Rasmussen poll. This is the poll on likely voters between Obama and Romney. Does anyone know what those numbers are today? Obama's at 44 and Romney's at 46. That's nationwide. And a friend of mine, Julia de Guzman, who came today, suggested that I ask how many Hispanics are in the room. Órale. Thanks for that, Julio. Well, let me get into this. The Republican National Party launched its Hispanic Outreach Program this past January and appointed a woman by the name of Bettina Inclán as its director, and Bettina is Cuban. Well, we Federated Women like to say that we are the life of the party, and the Southern Division of California Federated Republican Women announced their Hispanic Outreach Program last year, 9 months prior to today. So as goes California, so goes the nation. And it is our mission to turn the 8 counties that make up Southern Division into the red. Will Rogers once said that Democrats really are the only reason to vote Republican. Well, ladies and gentlemen, on a more serious note, the problem today truly is twofold. That Republican registration continues at an overall decline, and Republicans are consistently losing elections to Democrats. Recent statistics suggest that decline to state voters are increasing in numbers, while Republican registrations continues to lag behind the Democrat registration. The latest court decision upholding the new California State Senate districts suggests that Republicans could even lose these few Senate seats and hand the Democrats a 2/3 majority in the Senate. The bottom line is, we need to do a better job attracting new voters who are pro-life, pro-family, and pro-free enterprise. And that solution can be found in the Latino voter. The RNC and CFRW have organized at the local level to garner more Latino support for Republicans, utilizing a combination of online and grassroots techniques to reach out to Latinos young and old. Southern Division CFRW has been asking Latinos to give us their promise or promesa that they will be our Republican messengers to their families and social networks. Our outreach program is called La Promesa Project, and it's based on 2 key research findings. The first is that young Latinos are increasingly the trusted sources of political information in their families and circles. And the second is that the internet has surpassed TV as the main source of political information for people under 30. The Promesa project includes both old and new avenues of communication, advertisements, and talking points. Print media, Spanish newspapers, radio, television, and new technologies such as Twitter, Tumblr, texting, email, Facebook. These are the tools of today, and Twitter is by far the strongest conservative tool in your iPhone, in your smartphone. Information is so rapid and fast on Twitter. Our son is in the United States Air Force stationed at Colorado Springs at the Air Force Academy. I knew about the fires and his evacuation before it was even approached on any local TV media. The plan is to communicate clearly to Latinos that Republicans are offering solutions and inclusion, while Democrats continue to be blatantly disrespectful and truly outright deceitful. For years, the Democrats have rewritten history and twisted the truth about the Republican Party. Since Abraham Lincoln, Republicans have been there for minorities when it counted. But the Democrats continue to claim credit for the success of the civil rights movement. No credit is ever given to the Republicans, and it's our fault. We Republicans don't correct this. We think we need to be polite, and it is time to stop all this politeness. It is incumbent upon each and every one of you that when you hear misinformation, you speak up and you correct it. You don't have to be nasty, but you have to be factual. And boy, don't those Democrats want to debate with phony science. Well, in fact, just this last Sunday at the Del Mar Fair, I was there registering voters for the San Diego County Federated Republican Women. And a middle-aged Hispanic man came up to me and asked me in Spanish I can't remember his name. He was a black man, Martin Luther King. Yes, was he a Republican? Is that true? Absolutamente. The records show that since 1933, Republicans have had a more positive record on civil rights than Democrats. In 26 major civil rights votes since 1933, the majority of Democrats opposed civil rights legislation in over 80% of the vote, while the Republican majority favored civil rights in over 96% of the vote. You don't hear that out on the street, do you? We need a different approach than the Democrats because Republican gains within the Latinos will come from going beyond the rhetoric and the scare tactics. So why is it so critical to communicate the Republican conservative message to the Hispanic community? And why is the Hispanic vote so critical in this election year? Listen to these numbers, and the answer will become very clear. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, Hispanic or Latino refers to a person of Cuban, Mexican, Puerto Rican, South or Central American, or other Spanish culture, regardless of race. Spanish is the official language of 19 countries. The United States is the second largest Spanish-speaking country in the world. The three largest Hispanic groups in the United States are Mexican Americans at 56%, Puerto Ricans at 10%, and Cubans at 5%. Hispanics are the largest and fastest growing ethnic group and represent 15% of the population and 9% of eligible voters. The median age of the Hispanic population right now is 25.5 years of age. 1 in 6 Americans is Hispanic. By the year 2050, we will be 30% of the population. The joke on the streets these days is that 1 in 6 Americans are Hispanic. Well, the other 5 are also Hispanic, they're just not Americans. Hispanic businesses are concentrated in states with the largest Hispanic population. California is home to 27% of all Hispanic companies. Texas is at 20.3%, and Florida comes in third. The U.S. Hispanic purchasing power has increased in the last decade by 6.96% annually. Hispanic buying power doubled from 1996 to 2008, from $429 billion to $870 billion. And by the end of 2012, that's this year, folks, it's projected to be $1.10 trillion. There are 36 million Hispanic U.S. citizens. 25% are under the age of 18. So that means there are 26 million voters. Close to a third of Latino voters always vote Republican. In 2008, Obama won 2 out of 3 Latino voters. We cannot let that happen again in 2012. The 2010 census indicates the Hispanic or Latino population grew by 43% from 2000 to 2010. The states with the largest Hispanic populations are California with 13 million or 37% of the state, Texas 9 million or 36%, Florida 4 million or 21%, New York 3 million or 17%. And check this out. Illinois, 2 million or 16% of their state. An estimated 50,000 Hispanics who are citizens turn 18 every month, with 87% of them eligible to vote. Census projections say this will be a consistent trend for the next 18 years. 12 million Hispanics are expected to vote in the 2012 election. If we could reach just a small portion of these emerging voters, we can revitalize the conservative Republican Party, and we could put more Hispanics and Republicans into office. Right now, we know there are roughly 8 million Latinos who already routinely vote Republican. Just think what would happen if we could reach even 50% of the others. We could bring another 8 million voters nationally into the Republican ranks. So let me put that into perspective for you. Meg Whitman lost the governor's race to Jerry Brown by 1.3 million votes. Carly Fiorina lost the Senate seat to Barbara Boxer by just 1 million votes. And Steve Cooley lost the Attorney General office to Kamala Harris by just 74,000 votes. We could have taken those offices and more. The Hispanic culture is one that is pro-life, pro-family, pro-free enterprise, a culture that values hard work and has a value system that is in very close alignment with the Republican Party. This project can potentially bridge the gap between the California that the Democrats have created for us and the California that we deserve. CFRW and Southern Division are asking each county, each Republican Women's Club, each county GOP and Central Committee, each Tea Party, each conservative organization to go out and start your own Hispanic outreach effort and use the tools that we've already prepared for you. This presentation needs to be given to as many people as possible. So now the question is, well, how do we communicate the conservative Republican message to the Latino community? I'm going to talk to you about 2 methods. The first one is called the Red Book, and they've been passed out. They're all over the tables. If you don't have any, my family will be happy to run some over to your table. Just raise your hand. Bonnie Parsley of the Temecula RWF took the initiative to create a booklet that compares and contrasts the Republican and the Democrat parties, their philosophies, their goals, their ideologies, and the consequences of each for America, and we in the Federation refer to it as the Red Book because it had a red cover. So we began to have the Red Book translated into Spanish. However, in doing so, we found that the literal translation from English to Spanish was not going to accomplish our goal. The consequences of not communicating our message carefully and thoughtfully were tremendous. If we didn't do this right, we could end up doing more damage than good. So the Red Book had to be completely rewritten to make it culturally reading and relevant so that any Hispanic reading it would be able to determine on their own that they are in their hearts Republican. Because we feel a message first. You've heard that passion thing about the Hispanic culture? Well, there's something to that. We feel it, and then slowly it kind of works its way up into a cognitive sense up here, and then it's more academic at that point. But to get there, you gotta have some feeling about that thing, and we're passionate, much to the chagrin of our families sometimes. So a friend of mine whose business is Hispanic media and communication got to work. The result is a professional translation which communicates a direct message and changes it to one for the soul. The result is a completely rewritten Spanish translation and an English version for the Latino who subscribes to the culture but doesn't read or write Spanish, because not all Hispanics, especially those born in the United States, read, write, or speak Spanish, although they've been brought up in the culture, and the politics of the culture has been passed down. I printed the first 500 copies of El Libro Rojo and took them with me to a Voto Latino Power Summit at USC in April. Let me tell you about what we're up against here. Voto Latino is a nonpartisan organization, and they are going out, much like the League of Women Voters, right? They're going all around the country, inciting young adults at colleges, training them for a grassroots team to go out and register voters. That's why it was important for us to be there. They had a panel, and all these people speaking on the panel, some were Dolores Huerta, who was a farm workers activist back in the 60s. She's still out there beating the pavement today. And Rosario Marin, a friend of mine who was the first Hispanic United States treasurer appointed under Bush. Rosario was the only conservative out of these 12 panelists. When I asked the speaker and the chairwoman of this organization about their nonpartisanship and how come there's all these progressive panelists and there's only one conservative, my answer was that, well, we had them all sign these affidavits saying that they would be nonpartisan when they came here. And we really can't be responsible for what they say once they're here. No me digas. So, Dolores Huerta gets up and she starts her presentation, and the first thing out of her mouth is, all you kids, you young adults here, you have to repeal Prop 13. Prop 13 is stealing your education money. You have to overturn it, and it's incumbent upon you to do everything you can to tell everyone you know to vote against Prop 13. And I'm sitting there just shaking, because I know that that's not what Prop 13 is about. So you can't just go up and address this issue or raise your hand and speak out. You have to wait. They have microphones set up. You have to go back to the microphone, wait your turn, you get up there. Finally, it's my turn. This was in the early morning session. Señora Huerta, muchísimas gracias para su servicio para el país and todos la gente aquí. We have to be very flowery when we speak to our elders. Thank you so much for all of the work that you have done on the plight of the farm workers and for all the service that you've given to our country. However, one point of clarification. Every single one of you kids in this room and young adults, college students and otherwise, if you overturn Prop 13, and this is what they're not telling you, every single one of you whose parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, brothers and sisters, friends and enemies that own a home would be taxed out of your home. And the few pennies that they think they might save are going to go slammed right back into the California General Fund, so it's not going to be there for education anyways. But most importantly, you'd all be homeless. So that's the importance of Prop 13. Let's talk about both sides of the story. We need support from every county club, every member, to get these booklets out and into the hands of the Hispanic populace. Both versions of the Red Book landed in Washington, D.C. in May, and they've been delivered to the president of the National Federation of Republican Women, to Carol Hadley, the president of our California State Republican Federation, to Mike Valente, who is Chief of Staff for the RNC Chairman, Prince Rebus. We've gotten them to Romney's campaign, and we've also gotten them to Marco Rubio's campaign. We have it live on the CFRW website for download, and as I just mentioned, we have a direct contact into Romney's campaign who has given it to him, and we've sent several copies to Marco Rubio. Little sidebar. At the Orange County Lincoln Club Reagan dinner, Karl Rove was the keynote speaker, and before the event, I was talking briefly with Mr. Rove about our efforts in California to attract the Hispanic vote. Francisco Valle, who authored this with me, was there at our table, and after we were done speaking with Mr. Rove, we didn't tell him, we didn't run up to him with our book and say, read this, look what we did. We just were kind of asking him his thoughts on the whole thing. His presentation begins, he walks up to the podium, and the first thing out of his mouth was, in your heart, what makes you a Republican? And Francisco Valle spun around so fast, I thought he was going to be Resurrect the Exorcist, because he was just so edified. The title that we put on this book is En su corazón. ¿Es usted un republicano o un demócrata? In your heart, are you a Democrat or a Republican? And for Karl Rove, just to give that edification was just very important to us. The second method of reaching out to the Hispanic community is networking. Now, most of you hear this and you think about the corporate or the business world or the chamber networks and the sundowners and that sort of thing, and that's not what I'm talking about. Every single one of you have places to go. You have errands to do. You have businesses to go to. You come across Hispanics everywhere, at the gas stations, at the supermarkets, at the banks, at church, when you're traveling, who's cleaning your room. You need to have these booklets with you everywhere you go. At the gas station, when you pull up there and there's a campesino or a jardinero's truck that comes up right next to you, you just start talking to that gas pump. Oh my gosh, look at the price of gas again. Oh, sure, it's come down 2 pennies, but what's going to happen again? It's going to go up another $1 in another week? We need a new president. You think they don't speak English? They have to speak English. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to be mowing your lawns or cleaning your house. Supermarket. I like to go to the Hispanic markets out where I live. And I happen to like to buy El Pato tomato sauce. It's the one with the duck, and it's a little spicier. Often I'll stand in that grocery aisle and stare at that can of tomato sauce with the duck, and as soon as somebody comes down the aisle, I'll just start talking to that duck. No me digas, look at the price of this. Can you believe? This has gone up again. We need a new president. When you go to the bank, I'm an accountant and I do a lot of banking for clients. I used to always have to be fast and efficient and expedient, and time is money, right? So I'm always going through a drive-through. Well, one occasion I had to walk in, and I looked around me and it was like Target-rich environment. I had Hispanics all over me, all making their deposits from their landscape business or their taco shops or their laundromats or their dry cleaning or whatever it is that they're doing. So now I stand in there and I enjoy going in. My husband takes a long time waiting for me in the car, but I enjoy going in. Just today at the Ramona Bank, man standing in front of me. Wow, how's business going for you? Is it doing any better? No, not me either. I'm not depositing near as much. You know, cash flow for my clients has really been bad. Oh, you too? We need a new president. ¿Sabes qué? When you're traveling, have these books with you. I leave them in the hotel rooms. I leave them in the racks in the hotels where they have all of the travel information stuff. Another great place to put these things is laundromats, the Mexican markets, on the stands where they have La Prensa and all these other Spanish publications. These things need to go in all those places. You need to hand out material when you're having your rodeos or your street fairs. We walked the street fair in Fallbrook for the Avocado Festival. My husband said I was profiling because I was walking up to everybody and giving them. And let me tell you, out of the thousands that I have given out, I've had probably 3 refuse me. Hispanics are a very polite culture. And what I say to them is, can I give you this? Here's my little book. Would you mind doing me a favor? Tráeme un favor. Would you please read my little book? Take it home. You don't have to read it here. To the ones that speak English, let me give you this to read. Put it in your bathroom. Read it every time you go in your bathroom. It's easy to do. All of these are small business owners, and this is important to them too, because really, it's about the economy. And the last thing I want to talk to you a little bit about is the elephant in the room, and that is immigration. Immigrant rights groups and some political watchers say the GOP has severely hampered itself as it looks to woo the Latino voting bloc that could decide who wins key states like Nevada, Florida, Colorado. Well, the indicators show that this is not exactly true. Romney has taken a fair, civil, and practical stance on immigration. Just last week, he promised the National Association of Latino elected and appointed officials that he would ease the path to a green card, fix a complicated and cumbersome system to let farm workers into the U.S., and finish a high-tech fence along the Mexican border. Temporary and seasonal workers are considered a necessity for the United States agriculture industry. But importing legal workers has proved very difficult. The Labor Department's visa program for temporary seasonal workers has long been viewed as costly, cumbersome, and inefficient. And the several attempts to overhaul it have been blocked by Congress. And it is Congress that sets the annual limits for visas for foreigners. Well, the very next day after Romney's address, Obama addressed the same group, saying, "We should have passed the DREAM Act a long time ago. It was written by members of both parties. When it came up to a vote for a year and a half ago, Republicans in Congress blocked it." Well, the facts are 5 Senate Democrats voted against sending the DREAM Act to the Senate floor for full consideration. Why? Because the bill would have created a path to citizenship for many young illegal immigrants brought to this country as children. So last week, Obama announced plans to stop deporting illegal immigrants who would have qualified for the DREAM Act. Well, Marco Rubio opposes the current form of the DREAM Act. He agrees that 90% of the Latino community support the concept of the DREAM Act. In fact, 90% of all Americans support a concept of the DREAM Act, helping young kids that were brought in this country through no fault of their own, who have grown up here their entire lives, are academic achievers, or want to serve in the military and would like to stay in the U.S. legally. He also believes the DREAM Act itself has problems, and that's what led to the opposition. The first problem was that they couldn't get 60 votes for it in the Senate. And the second thing is that the DREAM Act itself has certain things that led to that opposition. For example, it would allow for chain migration, so not only are the kids going to be helped, but they could use that position to bring in their relatives, and that could be an additional 3 or 4 million people. So that raised red flags. Rubio came up with a plan that honors our legacy as a nation of laws and our legacy as a nation of immigrants. Rubio's plan would allow young, undocumented immigrants who came to the U.S. with their parents to apply for non-immigrant visas. They would be permitted to stay in the country to study or to work. They could obtain a driver's license, but they would not be able to vote. And this is referred to as DREAM Act 2.0. Well, Rubio has been accused of supporting apartheid, of supporting a DREAM Act without a dream. Of course, a few months later, the president takes the similar idea and implements it through executive order, and now it's the greatest idea in the world. And a little inside baseball for y'all. Senator Harry Reid won't have the Senate back anything that doesn't give full amnesty. And if Rubio's DREAM Act 2.0 is killed by the Democrats, it could have negative consequences for them. But again, if you ask any Hispanic, and that's what the polls have done, the main issue for Hispanics is the same issue for everyone else in the country. It is the economy, stupid. And Romney has some of the best Spanish language ads on the economy that I've seen. Immigration is an emotional issue. We have to realize that and talk about it. And we can still be conservative on immigration and talk about it in a way that doesn't turn off Hispanics. Didi Blaze, who is the founder of Somos Republicanos in Arizona, said that the GOP would be lucky to get 8% of the Hispanic vote. And after Obama came out in support of gay marriage, Ms. Blaze formed another Latino group called the Tequila Party, which is aligning themselves to the gay community. These groups get formed in a pathetic attempt to manipulate the media for that brief moment and have us believe that the whole country is in support of their liberal agenda. Well, the majority of Hispanics in this country are not in support of gay marriage. Immigration is a very powerful issue. There are those Democrats that don't want this problem solved so that they can continue to use it each election. But remember, ladies and gentlemen, what history has taught us. In 1840, the Whig Party elected the president by a good margin, yet took the wrong position on slavery, causing the Whig Party to disappear by 1860. Abraham Lincoln had been the Whig Senate candidate from Illinois in 1854, but 2 years later, he jumped to the new Republican Party. Now, we're not saying that the GOP is in danger of disappearing like the Whigs did, but if you take a look at Fox News Latino, there's a poll that suggests the party could become a permanent non-factor in the Latino community after this November if we maintain a hard-nosed position on immigration. Such an outcome would make the GOP a permanent underdog in presidential elections. So how do we combat this? This is the ammunition that you need. When Obama was a senator, he opposed immigration reform that Senators Ted Kennedy and John McCain had worked on. He promised that if elected, he would implement immigration reform in his first 100 days in office. He never did. He has deported more immigrants than any other recent president, except, of course, in his own family. He has separated hundreds of thousands of families while claiming they had criminal records, when in fact the vast majority of them did not. So the question should be, what has compelled him to do so 5 months short of the November election? If it was so flippin' important, why didn't he issue his executive order in his first 100 days in office? And why is he so desperately trying to secure that voting bloc now? This latest political tactic is transparently political. His executive order is not a long-term solution, and far from uniting our country in reaching a true consensus on this very important issue of immigration, it only further polarizes us. Remember the haves and the have-nots, the 99% and the 1%. Some in the party leadership believe the party has a natural opening right now to improve our standing with Latinos in the future. And we have a small window of opportunity right now that we need to take advantage of. And my final and parting words to all you young people in the audience, and all of you that know young people in the audience, and all of you that know people that don't want to get involved, that want to watch Mike Slater choke. If you don't think one vote makes a difference, tell them this. In 1845, one vote brought the state of Texas into the Union. In 1911, one vote per precinct gave us women the right to vote in California. And in 1960, one vote per precinct across the nation was John F. Kennedy's margin of victory in the United States presidency. Thank you for inviting me to speak to you about CFRW's Southern Division's Hispanic Outreach Program. Please give kudos to Sally McKelvey, Intermountain RWF president, whose support and the doggedness of your Tea Party, Ramona TEA'd, just gives me the courage and the strength to keep pushing and putting everything else on the back burner.
I want to make you understand, because you didn't say anything about it, but you need to speak more of it. One of the reasons that the majority of people that vote Republican in United States, but mainly here in California, is when we see a bunch of Hispanic kids wrapping themselves in a Mexican flag and wanting to have everything that they get from this country.
Let me interrupt you because you've already answered your question. Have you a copy of the Red Book?
Yes, I have.
The Red Book is the Constitution. The Red Book takes excerpts of the Bill of Rights and the Constitution and puts it in a language for the Hispanic to share. That's why we did it.
That's wonderful, but that's what we need to make sure these kids understand, that the reason that they're having all of these freedoms is because of the Constitution of the United States, not Mexico.
Agreed.
Right here.
Why was the abortion, specifically late-term abortion, omitted completely from this Red Book?
Well, because right now what we're doing is trying to get the Hispanic community to pull their arms around the information. You don't want to, just like with the Democrats, I'm not going to argue with the Democrat. I'm going to be polite and respectful and correct their misinformation. We could have done the whole Constitution in Spanish, but that wasn't the goal. The goal is to attract the Hispanic voter with the issues that are important to them. Immigration is a huge important issue. Abortion is a big important issue. But the economy is what this election is focused on this year. And we made a judgment call to... Point taken. Thank you, sir.
In consideration of the importance of the upcoming fall election and achieving the Latino vote, out of the three main contenders that I think Romney is considering for vice president would be Rubio, Condoleezza Rice, and Paul Ryan. Would you care to comment about which one of those would be your suggested VP nomination? And I think I know the answer.
Well, let me share with you this. This question comes up on a regular basis everywhere I go. And when someone in the audience suggested Condoleezza Rice, which sounds like a legitimate VP candidate, boo hiss came from the room because she was in Bush's cabinet. And they felt that if they had Condoleezza Rice, who would make a fabulous vice president, she would bring with her the taint of what a lot of the independents or the Democrats don't want or liked about the Bush years. I hope that helps. I'm going to wait. My suggestion, if you're asking me personally, because of several other positions I hold, I cannot endorse specific candidates, much to the chagrin of a lot of Republican candidates here that have other Republicans running for them. And I'm sorry, but read my... Yes.
Yes, I listened to your speech, and you talked all about the Hispanics coming over here and what have you. And the reason they're coming over here is to get jobs, and we understand that. But the part that really bothers me that's never spoken to is those employers, and some of them are big, that employ them, and they pay them under the table and things of that nature, which of course robs the tax base and robs the cash flow needed in this country. When are we going to do something about these big employers and find them and put them where they belong? When we elect
Mitt Romney as president in November, that's when we're going to do something about that. But actually, there has been numbers that have recently come out that show that because of the stricter, because we have a bad economy, there's fewer people coming across the border, not as many as in the past. Maybe we should cross. Thank you very much.
Oh, wait! Now it's time!
Wow. I'm sorry for being late. Black people are always late. Even when we try to be early. We've been on the road so long, we had to stop and use the bathroom. Once we got off the 405 and hit the 5, the traffic stopped. Absolutely. Yeah, it was a mess. And so I do apologize. It feels as though we left LA yesterday. I'm glad to be here. I do want to take some questions and answers from you as well. Tell you about what we are doing. About 22 years ago, we started a nonprofit organization. Oh, let me tell you this first. I like starting out like this. I do a radio show, a live show, Monday through Friday. Okay, I do a live radio show Monday through Friday from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific time. And most of the time I open up the show by saying that I am not an African American. I don't have an afro, I have an Amerifro. That's right, just like my friend here. There are no African drums beating in my chest. The American guitar is playing in my heart. I'm as black as the ace of spades. You turn these lights out, all you see are white teeth. But 100% American. I love my country, and I'm glad that I'm born here. I grew up on a plantation down in Alabama, right outside of Montgomery, Alabama. And my parents, their parents, and their parents, and their parents worked the plantation. We had to pick cotton and do all that kind of stuff. I remember going to a movie theater once as a teenager in Alabama because there were laws that restricted us from living in certain areas. But I went to a movie theater once, and black Americans were not allowed to sit in the downstairs with white Americans. We had to sit in the balcony because of the separation of races. And I was okay with the balcony because we had a better view. I'm like, wow, this is cool, right? And I would be taken out of school certain times a year to plant the crop and to bring things in. But not one time did I hear my grandparents or my parents tell us that we should hate white folks. They said that if you work hard, you do the right thing, you treat people the way you would like to be treated, and to believe in God that nothing can stop you. Treat people the way you would like to be treated. And I grew up like that. And there is never a reason to hate or resent, but if anyone had a reason to, they would have had that reason, but they didn't have that. They believed in what was right. Anybody ever pick cotton here? Oh, good. You have not lived until you pick some cotton. I remember on my radio show when Newt Gingrich said that black children should work custodian jobs. Remember that? They should work as janitors at the schools and things, and all hell broke loose. The people got mad about it. And I said, well, I would do a little bit better than that. When I become president, I'm taking most black people back to the plantation so I could teach them the work ethics, learn them how to work. And all hell broke loose. It was like they were mad about it. I couldn't understand why they were mad about it because most of them have not grown up on plantations and they have the wrong idea about it. I left Alabama at the age of 18 and moved to Los Angeles. Coming from the plantation to Los Angeles, it was like, I'm telling you, it was mind-blowing. I made a lot of mistakes along the way. And I realized then at the age of 18 that I had a lot of anger. I had resentment, but not for white Americans. What happened was my mother and my father got my mother pregnant when she was a teenager. They were dating. And when my mother told him about it, he denied it. Oh, that's not my child. And so my mother became very angry at him for denying it. And she ended up marrying my stepfather because during those days, it was an embarrassment to be pregnant out of wedlock. So she married my stepfather. But the thing that happened is that she resented my father so much that she didn't want anything to do with him and didn't want me to have anything to do with him. And I have to tell you, the worst thing that can happen to a child, whether male or female, black or white, is to turn them away from their fathers. Because when you turn kids away from their fathers, they grow up empty the rest of their life. It's like something is always missing. And it doesn't matter how much money you have or don't have, the type of friends you have or don't have. You still have that void in your life. And so I grew up with that void. And when I moved to California, I didn't know what it was, but I knew something was missing. And whenever I would ask my mother about my father, she would say, oh, he's no good, forget about him. But I wanted my dad. As a kid, I had a longing for my father. And I knew that that's what it was. But she didn't want me to have anything to do with it. So I moved to California, and I started to go to church. And yet I had this emptiness. Nothing would fulfill me. I read the Bible. I gave money to the church. I did all those things. But nothing fulfilled me. And whenever I would ask the preachers about it, they would say, it's not you. It's racism. The white man trying to keep me down. They were literally telling me that in the churches of Los Angeles. And then I started listening to Jesse Jackson and others, and they said that it was racism. The white man trying to keep the black man down, right? And so I started to believe that after a while, because these were people of authority, you know, adults telling us the right and the wrong things to do. And I thought that they were credible people. And so I started for the first time in my life to resent white Americans, because I thought what they were telling me was true. And when I did that, my whole life just fell apart. It got worse instead of getting better, because there is a spiritual law is that you become like what you hate. You take on the identity of what you resent. That's why I became like my mother. I was very emotional and doubtful and had a lot of insecurity and stuff like that, because I resented her for turning me away from my father. Whether you know it or not, believe it or not, accept it or not, there's a spiritual order to life, and that order is God in Christ, Christ in man, man over woman, and women over children. And God created that order because he understood if you maintain that order, life can be good. But once it's broken, you catch hell in life. So I started to resent white folks because I believed what they were telling me, that he was, you know, white people were my problem. And I got worse. I felt bad. You know, I got worse. Because what you put out comes back on you. And so I tried to get rid of my guilt. And one of the things that I did was I started to smoke weed. Anybody ever smoke marijuana? Only 2 people. Boy. We have a whole lot of honest people in here, huh? Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to search everybody and see if you have it on you. So I started to smoke marijuana to get rid of my guilt, this guilt that I had from judging, from hating. And instead of getting better, I got worse because it doesn't last. That kind of salvation doesn't last. Then I was told by black so-called leaders that, you know what, black people built this country and they owe us something. And my friends were on, you know, smoking, doing drugs as well. And they said that since you're on drugs, you cannot work. So what you can do is go down to the welfare office and tell them that you cannot work because you're doing drugs. And isn't that amazing? This is America. And so, so I ran down to the welfare office and I told them that I couldn't work. I'm on marijuana, I can't work. And they sent me over to a doctor that they had right there in the office. I told him the same thing. He wrote it up. And they gave me $300 a month in cash. They paid my rent. They gave me food stamps, free health care, just everything. Took care of me. And then my life got worse instead of getting better. Because when you don't work and take care of yourself, you get worse instead of getting better. I lost that desire to take care of myself. And so long story short, one day I asked God, I said, you know, let me see myself. I don't feel like a man. I feel so emotional and insecure. Every woman I got involved with, I could not handle. You know, she would like take over my life in some kind of way. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? Yeah. So, you know, I didn't know what was wrong with me, so I asked him to let me see. I remember, so let me tell you this. I wanted to know myself. The Bible said, know thyself, right? So I wanted to know myself. I didn't understand why I was so messed up. And so I heard a Jewish preacher who believed in Jesus say, I turned my radio on one day. He said that when you pray, just go into your prayer closet, be still and know God. He said, you don't have to be wimping and whining and begging. Just be still, let the truth catch up with you. And at that point, I was desperate to overcome myself. So I went home that night. I sat quietly in my bedroom. And because normally when I would pray, I would say, oh, Lord, bless my mama, bless my daddy, give me some money. I want a house. And I used to ask God for a wife. Because the preacher said, if whatever you want from God, ask for it. If you want a wife, ask for a wife, right? And so every time I would ask God for a woman, he would give me one, but I couldn't handle her. And so I stopped asking for a wife. I just said, you know what, God, forget about the woman deal. If you want me to have it, okay, make me ready for it. But forget about the wife right now. But this time I sat quietly and I wanted to overcome this insecurity that I had and inability to function in the right way. And God allowed me to see that I resented my mother and my father for not being there, my mother who tried to turn me away from him, and I become just like her. And in that same moment, he caused me to feel really sorry about this resentment that I had, because I realized that my mother couldn't help herself. That she tried to do the best. She loved me, but she couldn't help herself. And it was wrong for me to hate her. It wasn't right for what she did, but it was wrong for me to resent her because that was holding me back in life. And so my mother came to California to visit her sister. And God said that if you are angry at someone, forgive them. Go to that person and forgive them, and I will forgive you. They don't have to apologize. They don't have to admit that they're wrong. You forgive them, and God will forgive us. You know what I mean? So I went to my aunt's house. I was about 38 at the time. And the closer I got to the house, fear would just overtake me. I became so afraid. I could barely breathe. And I thought, wow, why am I so afraid of my mother? As an adult, I'm afraid of my mother. But I remember that she didn't have patience with me when I was a kid. She wouldn't validate that I was right in what I was saying, and I resented her for those things, so I had no control in that area. So I got to the house, and I took her into the room, and right away when I walked in, she was laughing and having fun, and Satan said, oh, this is the wrong time. You're going to mess up her vacation. Don't talk to her now. But I knew in my heart that I had to forgive her so I could go free. I go into the room, and I told my mother what I just told you, that I resented her for what she did to me. And I said to her, I have become just like you. I'm insecure, doubtful, I have fear. I don't know my purpose in life. I don't know what to do. So I realized if I'm this way and I can't help myself, I realize you can't help yourself. And I'm sorry for resenting you for it. And my mother, for the first time in my life, apologized. And she told me, she said, I didn't know that I had done this to you. And she told me about my grandmother, her mother, and exactly what my mother had done to me was done to her. And it just passed down from generation to generation because people don't deal with it. But the beauty is that the moment I forgave her, God forgave me. And he took away all of my fears, all of my doubts, all of my worries, all of my insecurities, and he gave me perfect peace. And 24 years have gone by, and I've gone through more hell since then, lately, but I still have perfect peace because I can see now that my battle is a spiritual battle between good and evil, right versus wrong. It has nothing to do with your color. It has nothing to do with whether you're male or female. It's a spiritual battle between right and wrong, good versus evil. And so I walked away from there free. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing, because I realized that most black Americans are not suffering from that point. I realized that most black Americans are not suffering because of racism, but it's a lack of moral character. It's not having fathers and mothers to guide you in the right way to go. And instead of being told that that's what it is, the black preachers and the politicians are telling them that it's a race issue. And they tell black folks that you can't be a racist because you don't own anything. So they don't look at themselves and see what's really wrong so they can overcome it, because they believe a lie. And once you believe a lie, it is hard to believe the truth again. Once you can believe, I remember I used to date sometime, and my girlfriend, when I would go visit with my girlfriend, she would be mad about nothing. And I'm like, what are you mad about? I heard that you were out there cheating, but I wasn't cheating. But she believed the lie, and the moment she believed the lie, there's nothing I can do to convince her. And that's what's going on in our country today. Once you believe a lie, it's over for you. And so I realized that this is why black folks are suffering, right? And so I called this preacher up, and I said to him that I had heard on my radio. I said that, you know, I went and I did the prayer. I sat quietly, I'm free. And I realized that black Americans are suffering not because of racism, but because of the lack of moral character. And so I called him up, and I wanted to help blacks get over that. And I had no idea that it would become what it is. But he allowed me to use his building. He announced it on his radio show. And about 80 to 100 black people showed up. And when I walked into that room, I was so nervous because I had no idea what was going to happen, right? And so I explained my situation to them, and they started opening up and talking about what was going on in their lives, and the same thing had happened to them. But they had not looked at that family issue. And so they started looking at it, and they wanted another meeting, and one thing led to another one. And 22 years later, I headed up an organization called BOND, the Brotherhood Organization of a New Destiny. And our purpose is to rebuild the family by rebuilding the man. I believe that if we could get all men, but especially black men, to turn back to God, love him with all their heart, soul, and might, get married, and the husband and wife guide their families in the right way to go, we could turn the black community around just like that by rebuilding that family in that manner. We have a home for young men that we bring in from around the country. We show these guys how to overcome their anger, forgive their parents first. They have to work, they go to school, they have to keep the place running. They earn their way. We tutor, we counsel with them, and we have mentors for them. And we have had very, very good success over the last 22 years. And I have to tell you, we have not asked for a dime from the government, nor have we received 1 penny from the government. Not 1 penny. I believe that the less government in your life, the better off you are. The better off you are. So that's why we haven't done it. We have one quick story. We brought some newsletters and things for you today. But one quick story. There was a young man who came to us at the age of 15, very angry at his parents. They couldn't do anything with him. And we got the parents together along with the boy, showed him how to forgive. He let that anger go. He went back and finished high school. And from there, he went to Princeton and graduated from Princeton. And from there, he went to Stanford Law School, graduated in high honors at Stanford Law School. And then he worked, when he finished there, he worked for a major firm in Washington, D.C., for a law firm there. This last year or two, he's been working for a judge up in Northern California, Washington area there. And now he's applying for a job with Clarence Thomas at the U.S. Supreme Court. He's trying to get there. But that's what happens when you let the anger go. And there are so many stories that we have, guys who have started businesses and all that. Let me tell you what happened, then I'll take some questions. 50 years ago, the government under Lyndon B. Johnson came in and said to black Americans, we're going to take care of you. Racism is holding you back. You can't do it on your own. And for some reason, black Americans said yes to that. And so they took the fathers out of the home. They said, you can't have a man in the home, breaking God's order. And so once they took the father out of the home, the government became the daddy of the family, and all hell broke loose. All hell broke loose. When I was growing up, I don't even know of anyone who had an abortion. And I was told that I don't even know of anyone who had an abortion. Today, because the government is the daddy and the corrupt black leaders are the head of the people, every day over 1,500 black babies are aborted. Every day. 70% of Planned Parenthood abortion mills are located in the inner cities around the country. If the father and mother were together and no government in their life, they couldn't do that. They could not do that. When I was growing up, less than 10% of black children born out of wedlock. Nationwide, over 70% of black babies are born out of wedlock today. There's no outcry about it from the so-called black leaders. They don't care about that. In the state of Indiana and Virginia, 80% of black children are born out of wedlock, according to the Census Bureau. 80%. You don't hear the outcry about it. All they do is collect more money from the government in order to keep it going. And the reason that they are doing it that way, the so-called civil rights leaders and others don't want things to change, because if black Americans were to wake up, get married, take control of their own lives, these people would go out of business. They will absolutely go out of business. They would not exist. But that's why they don't want black Americans to get better, because you cannot control a moral people. You have to demoralize them in order to control them. And they want them in that state. They absolutely want them like that. And it's so bad that these people are having these babies out of wedlock, and there's no shame about it. They have baby showers, they invite people over, and the man is out making a baby by somebody else. No shame at all. That would not have happened when I was growing up because of the shame. Black Americans knew that that was wrong. And they have some of the worst so-called leaders that you can possibly have. You ever heard of Jesse Jackson? I know. Mm-hmm. For 5 years, my organization, Bond, we will hold a protest. We repudiated Jesse Jackson. For 5 years, we had a protest in front of his Rainbow Push office, LA. And we were bringing in speakers, and we had big picket signs and exposing this guy for what he really is. And Jesse Jackson cheated on his wife. He made a baby with that woman and took the woman to the White House under the pretense of Councilor Bill Clinton, who had cheated on his wife. Remember that? I believe that they gave each other the high five. You know, like, right on, brother, I did it too, right? Jesse Jackson has managed to divide the races like no one else before. Divide the races in order to gain for himself. He have accused white Americans of being racist. Anytime he wants something that from white folks, get a little more money, a little more power, he look at a situation, call it racist, and white Americans, for the most part, buckle down and give him what he wants. And Al Sharpton, and they all are doing the same thing. Well, we repudiated Jesse Jackson for 5 years, and we would do it on Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday, because we wanted to show the contrast between Dr. King's dream and Jesse Jackson's nightmare. Dr. King had a dream that one day black Americans would be judged by the contest of character and not color. But because of the government and because of the so-called civil rights leaders, they're judged by their color because they lack character. And Dr. King said that one day we would become one nation under God. But we are more divided today than any other time in history because of these people. And we exposed that, and I've written about it and talked about it, and it's starting to have a little influence now in that black folks are starting to take a second look at this guy. But he can still walk into the average black church, and rather than repudiating him, he gets a standing ovation in the black churches. And I'm like, what type of example is that for the young folks who are seeing this, you know? They're going to end up doing the same thing. You heard of Maxine Waters, right? How would you like to be married to that one, huh? I found that the South Los Angeles Tea Party, and so what we're doing is educating Hispanics and blacks in that area and getting them involved. Well, last year, the Congressional Black Caucus did what they call a job tour, and they ended up at Crenshaw Christian Center in South Central LA. So South Central LA Tea Party showed up there. We showed up. And Maxine Waters got up, and they had that thing down. They had it tight. They didn't want us to ask any questions or anything. But Maxine Waters got up and said to the folks, the Republicans want to keep you down. They want to take away your houses. They want to take away the projects. But I'm not going to let them take the projects away from you. I'm going to make sure you keep them. And not only am I going to make sure you keep the projects, she named all the projects in the area. Not only am I going to make sure you keep the projects, we're going to build some more for you. And the people went, yeah, praise the Lord, hallelujah. And I'm like, are you guys insane? Have you ever gone to a project lately? It is hell on earth, absolute hell on earth. But they were happy about it because they've been so dumbed down and brainwashed and demoralized. And these were men and women. And they have lost their desire to take care of themselves. And that's what happens when you do that. When you allow someone to just give, you take away their desire. You can corrupt your children like that. Give to them without making them earn it. They'll turn on you and put you out of your own home if you don't take care of them. And that's why we're finding a lot of young men, 40, 50, and 30, living at home with their parents because they've been spoiled. When I was growing up, I knew I had to leave at 18. My grandmother was like, boy, at 18, you're out of here. I'm like, where am I going? She's like, I don't care where you go. You're out of here. And it was the best thing that could possibly happen to me because it made me grow up more, you know, and plus they taught me how to work while growing up. So it made me grow up more. But black Americans are spoiled because the government taking care of them. And we got to change that. I remember Jesse Jackson sued Toyota Motor because they ran an ad of a black guy with a gold teeth, and he called that racist. And they threatened Toyota with $700 million, I believe, something like that, right? And so, long story short, they had a meeting, and I received an invitation to that meeting with Toyota and all the so-called black leaders in the community. So I went to that meeting that day, downtown Los Angeles. I had no idea. I almost did not go. I wore jeans and a sweatshirt because I wasn't going to go. But one of the guys said, no, we need to go. So we get there, and I walk into this room, the NAACP there, most of the black preachers who are not called by God but by their mama. Boy, one day you're going to be a preacher. So I walk into this meeting, right? And they sat me right in front of Jesse Jackson. I'm like, oh, thank you, Jesus. I'm like, there is a God. I could not believe it. They walked me right in front of him. And so Jesse Jackson got up and talked about how they're going to give everybody this money, how they're going to spread the wealth. And then Toyota got up and did a presentation of how they're going to help us, right? And then they opened it up for question and answers, right? So I raised my hand, and the guy came to me and said, yes. I said, I told him about the organization, and I said, is there any way we can go directly to you? Because I don't agree with anything that Jesse Jackson or any of these people about. And when I said that, all hell broke loose. It was like I had walked into a KKK meeting. They were yelling and screaming and calling me nigger. You ever heard the word nigger? White people are afraid of that word, huh? Don't say nigger. And black people saying nigger all over the place. I want to tell you, black Americans do not care about that word at all. It's just another way of controlling you. Because if they cared about that word, if it was such a bad word, they'll stop using it first. And then you would get the hint, and you'll stop using it, right? They don't care about that word at all. Not one iota. It's just another way of controlling you. So I said, I don't care about, I don't agree with anything that these people about. They were yelling and screaming and calling me nigger and Uncle Tom. And by the way, I've been called nigger so much that I told my staff one day, I think I'll just change my middle name. I'm going to change my name from Jesse Lee Peterson to Jesse Nigger Peterson. But what they don't realize, when God changed my heart, I'm not affected by words anymore. Words do not move me at all. Not at all. That's why you got to let that anger go so you can be in the world but not of it. And so the thing finally settled down a little bit. Oh, I understand. I'm so sorry I was late. I'll come and have dinner at your house one day. I'm going to make this short so I can get some questions answered. I know time is short. So they finally got the meeting settled down. The poor guy from Toyota, he was so scared. He was a white man. Poor guy. We became friends after that. I'm friends with him today, even though he's not working for the organization anymore. They did not get the money as a result of what I started. So Toyota did not cave in to them at all. Isn't that nice? Yeah. And so I'm standing at the coffee table after the meeting ended so that my guy can give some information to Toyota. Jesse Jackson's son, Jonathan, came over, and he hit me. He was so mad. And so he and I going at it. Then Jesse came over, cursing me out, yelling at me, calling me all kind of names. Greg Mathis came over, and I fought myself. They had like locked me in. And at one point, I literally thought they were going to take my life. That's how angry they were with me. So they finally got me out of there some kind of way. And I called Judicial Watch and told them what had happened. 5 years later, we went to trial. And that was the best time of my life. I've had a lot of best times. But we lost on the civil rights issue of the part of the trial. It was a lot hung jury on the assault. So it ended up being a hung jury, but just going through that was everything because they were mad at me and they were like, oh man, it was so much fun. And I say that to tell you that inside of us, God is with us. He's always with us, and he loves us. He loves his children. And he said that greater is he that's in us than he that's in the world. And if you overcome your resentment, that great power will come forth. And you'll be amazed at how he will work through us. Because this battle is a spiritual battle between good and evil. And they don't have God on their side. That's why they try to intimidate you. And once you get into the intimidation, you lose. Even in your personal life, if you notice, whenever someone wants something from you, they work on your ego. For an example, I'll use myself so I don't make you guys mad today. Since I'm late, I'll use me. I used to date a lot, and whenever my girl want me to buy her something, she would tell me how wonderful I am. She's like, oh, you're so wonderful. I just love you. You're so handsome. My mother liked you too. And then it would build my ego, right? But if I didn't fall for that, she would get mad and she would say, you are no good. You're just cheap. And you're not handsome anyhow. My mother told me not to get involved with you. And now my ego is mad, right? Up and down. Anybody ever gone through that? Yeah, the guys really know what I'm talking about. Oh, but the guys, ladies, the guys do that to women too when they want something from you. They tell you how sweet you are, how much they love you. And as soon as they get what they want, they don't want anything to do with you. You notice that? It's the ego thing. God said we got to lay that ego down. We must die from the ego and wake up to the spiritual life, the God that's in us. Then we will be able to do what's right and not what we feel, but the right thing to do. And you wouldn't be worried about losing anything. You got to let that go so that you could have the power within you. I told you not to vote for Barack Obama, but you wouldn't listen. The election of Barack Obama was about black racism and white guilt. That's what it was about. And now we are paying a price for it. Do you realize that Thursday we lost a part of our freedom by way of that socialized health care bill? That we are being forced to buy something that we don't want. And insurance that we don't want. If we don't buy it, they're going to fine us. Yeah, but same thing. But this is happening in America. Isn't it like, it's like we're in a nightmare. And I can hardly believe what's going on here. Barack Obama is about the redistribution of wealth, black liberation theology, lying, white hating, Israel hating, weak, socialist, poor, pitiful excuse of a man. And may God have mercy upon us if Barack Obama is reelected. I'm telling you, it is over. It's over. I mean, look what he's doing now. I mean, it's just shocking us every way he could. And every time he shocked us with this madness that he's doing, he get away with it. He's just taking a little more from us, a little more power, a little more power. When he lied about Jeremiah Wright Jr., just think about this. He sat under his ministry for 20 years or so. He said that this guy like an uncle to him. He married his big mama, Michelle. I call Michelle Big Mama because she's trying to take care of us too. Whenever you want something, you go over to Big Mama house and she'll feed you, right? While at the same time, Michelle eating up all the ribs, hamburgers. She eats so many hamburgers, they named a burger after her. Big Mama's Burger. He said that this man like an uncle to him. He gave money to him, baptized the children, but he didn't know the man spoke racism from the pulpit. I'm like, this Obama is lying. Why would you vote for a liar? Have you ever dated a liar? They never change. And now we are paying a price. I want to urge you, and I want to take some questions from you. I urge you to get over your fear, this fear of being called racist. They're only doing that so they can shut you down, they can manipulate you, they can control you. That's the only reason that they're doing it. And they pull that word out every time, anytime they want to get something, because they know that you are afraid. They don't have God, so they can't put any truth on you. They have to intimidate you with words. I want to urge you to get over that, because this is the greatest country in the world. Everybody and their mama are trying to come here. We can't keep the illegals out. And if you have fear, we're going to lose this race in November, and there's nowhere else to go. I don't even know who figured out how to put a town way out here called Ramona? I'm like, where in the world is this? There is nowhere else to run. At some point, you got to run out of land in America. At some point, you got to put your feet on solid ground and stand up for what is right. And that time is now. Now is the time. Let them call you racist. You tell the truth. Let them overreact. Don't you overreact. You just tell the truth and don't overreact. And then they'll end up running. And I'm telling you, that's the only way you're going to save this country. You got to get over the fear. The worst thing you can have in life is fear. And they know that. And that's why they're always using that word. So I urge you to let that go, because you do not want Barack Obama, Eric Holder, Big Mama Michelle in the White House again. You really, really don't. So please get over the fear. Tell the truth. And if you're afraid of black people, you could just tell them the truth and then run. Just take off. Because the truth has a way of working things out for you, right? It stays with that person if you don't overreact. So tell the truth and take off. It'll work on them. But you got to tell the truth. You got to be and men, in closing, you have a God-given responsibility to protect your family spiritually and financially. The responsibility is given to you. And if you are afraid, your family will be afraid. Because whether you know it or not, accept it or not, you are Christ in your home. And there's nothing worse than having a weak Christ. You got to be strong, so when your wife and children look up to you, they get the courage that you have that's been passed down to you from Christ. But men, you got to get over that. Look what they have done to the black man. The average black man today isn't worth a dime, because the government is taking over, the women are taking over, and the so-called black leaders are taking over. I have no fear. God took my fear away. I don't feel brave. It's just that I don't feel fear. I love what's right with all my heart, soul, and might. I have 6 children, 5 are adopted, and I love my kids more than anything else, but I love the truth more. I love it because it was the truth that made me free, and it's the truth that keep me on solid ground, and that's what you got to love. You got to love truth more than you love the name calling, and perfect love casts out fear. So please get over your anger so we can save America. God has given us one more chance come November. And if Mitt Romney get in there, and he doesn't do the right thing, we're going to kick him out in 4 years later. That's right. That's right. Put a Tea Party man in there, but we got to take back the government. It is we the people, not we the government. We the people. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. Do I have time for any questions? Okay, let me take some questions. Yes, sir. Way in the back here. Wait for the mic. Okay.
Is it on? I just want to give you a Jesse Jackson item. There was a time when he ran for the presidency.
Yeah.
And they put out bumper stickers that said, "Run, Jesse, run." And the people were grabbing them up.
Yeah.
And then the supply ran out. And they said, "Where are the Jesse Jackson bumper stickers?" They said, "There's a problem with them. They're putting them on the front bumper."
All right. That's funny. I love that.
Hi, Jesse Lee. It's
Hi.
good to see you again. Listen,
Thank you.
since the last time we saw you, I started writing for the Washington Times, and I was just thinking about what you said here. Driving the narrative when we hear this about the racism and everything, how do we respond to that, and how can we do something about that? I think that would be something that basically white America would like to hear, and conservative America would be a good topic for them.
The way you respond to it is just tell the truth. They're going to say, "Oh, you're just saying this because I'm black," or "You just hate black people." You stand there with merry eyes twinkling and tell the truth. And they get mad. They start calling your names. Just stand there and look at them as though you're looking at a movie and tell the truth. You can't make them believe that truth, but you speak the truth without overreacting to them, because when you don't overreact, they have to look at themselves. But if you overreact, it causes them to think that they're right and that you're wrong. But there is no other way around it. You just have to face it, tell the truth, and leave it alone. And God will do the rest. There's no secret to it at all. You got to tell the truth. And many of them will start to respect you for not having fear, but the love or the willingness to tell the truth about the situation. I've had guns drawn on me. My telephone's been tapped. Almost every day I get some type of threat. I have to travel with people now. Someone has to be with me because of that. But I'm unwilling to back away from the truth, because it's the truth that made this country so great. It's the truth that's going to continue to make us great. So there's no secret to it. Just tell the truth and let them be mad. Are you married?
36 years, not long enough.
Have you ever told your wife the truth and you were all nervous that she was going to get mad, but you told the truth anyway?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's that same kind of love you should have for all people. Love is simply not hating. Love is truth without resentment. So tell the truth and God will do the rest. Isn't that simple? Just tell the truth. And people who hate the truth, they're going to call you names. But those who love the truth will say, "Wow, thank you. I hadn't thought of it that way. I appreciate you telling the truth." Is that easy? That's all you need to do. Tell the truth and God will guide you the right way. Do not cower down by name calling. Do not run away from it. Tell the truth. All right? Yes, sir.
Yes, I, like most
sorry.
people, I think, was watching the hearings with the Attorney General.
Yes.
And they've caught him in lie after lie. And it's right there on the media. They can't get away from it. Yet we have the whole Black Caucus walk out on the vote. In other words, they are supporting a man that lies. And this, of course, does not look good for what we're here all about today, is for the blacks. In other words, it's making the whites sit there. A lot of them say, "See, the blacks lie," and they believe lies, and that's what they do. So I'd like to hear what you have to say about some of that.
You know, one thing I say about the Congressional Black Caucus, that the Congressional Black Caucus is a godless group of people. They don't care about what is right. They care about power and wealth. And it's unfortunate that most black Americans, not all, but have been demoralized and dumbed down. And the Black Caucus and the so-called black leaders keep control over black Americans by keeping them angry. and they only have one word they need to use to keep black folks in that position, and that is racism. They throw out that word. Most black Americans go into a hypnotic trance, and then they end up re-voting these people back in again into office. They do whatever these folks say. And so the Black Caucus they have put color over what is right. They don't care about what is right. And that's why they did that. And then they don't have to worry because they know that folks in their districts are going to vote them back in anyway, even if they do walk out. Eric Holder is wrong for what he's done. He needs to be repudiated. He needs to be in jail. But they don't support that. This is why most black people are not getting the truth from their churches. They're not getting it from home. They're not getting it from the public school system. So somebody got to love them enough to tell them the truth. And God has given you guys that responsibility, and ladies, to tell the truth, because they're not hearing that truth in their community, and it's easy for them to believe a lie, because most black Americans are racist toward white Americans today. It's not whites being racist toward blacks. It's blacks who are racist. And then they've been told they can't be a racist, so they won't look at that either. So that's what's going on with that. You're absolutely right. We got to change it, folks. Tell the truth, tell the truth. Yes, sir.
When you were talking about Barack Obama, one thing that all of us have to remember is read the book by Saul Alinsky,
Yeah.
Rules for Radicals. He is following the steps in that book exactly.
Yeah.
He's trying to take over this world, the United States of America, and make it into a communist nation.
Yes, sir.
And if we don't, you, as being a black person, they'll listen to you before they ever listen to me.
I wish that were true.
Well,
That
somebody needs to tell them, tell the whole media and everything, the man is a communist.
But let me just say this to you. I've heard this over and over again, and just realized I need to start killing that myth too. Black people don't listen to me. Some do, most don't. And the reason they don't, because I'm telling the truth. And it has nothing to do with color. And we have had a major impact over the last 22 years because we've stood strong. But it has nothing to do with my color that they don't hear from me. It's because they hate truth. They love lies. And so it's not about you being white. It's about you telling the truth. And that's why I say when they call you a name, when they call you racist, don't react to that. Just tell the truth anyway. They're on the side of lies. It's like with your kids. They don't want to hear the truth sometimes. And you're their father, right? But when they do want to hear it, they receive it well. It's the same thing in the black community. Don't fall for that they don't want to hear it just because you're white. They don't want to hear from black conservatives. You think Clarence Thomas can go into the inner cities and tell the truth? They hate him. So it doesn't matter the color. They don't want to hear the truth, but we have to put it out there anyway, and a few amongst the many will hear that truth and go free, and then it'll start to spread. That make sense? Yeah. All right. Yeah, you got to wait for the mic.
Yes, sir. Can't you use anger as motivation?
You can, but it turns out wrong every time. It will turn out wrong. What you have to realize, anger is the nature of Satan. And when you're an angry person, you're a very judgmental person. You're insecure. You have doubt and fear. And so you're not putting love out. You're putting out more hate. And that's why God said, overcome anger. Forgive so that you can operate in perfect love. And that's where your motivation should be coming from. If you want real energy and you want real power, let the anger go and operate from love. And love is not a touchy-feely thing. It's not an emotion. God's love is not of emotions. It's just you see the right thing to do and do it. You see what's wrong and deal with it, but you don't hate the people who are wrong. You just deal with the spirit of what they're doing. So, no, anger is not a good motivation. Obama is angry. Look what he's doing to us. That man is mad as they can come. I mean, wouldn't you be mad if you were married to Michelle? So, but no, anger, by the way, would mess up your family. Anger would turn your children against you because you don't have the right love to discipline them with. They feel this resentment coming from you, and they don't sense love coming from you. And when they grow up, they'll turn on you. Anger is not a good motivation at all. If you want real power, let your anger go. Let it go and operate from love. Yes, sir.
Sir, I understand what you were saying earlier about the truth and how you just have to say it, but most people are probably not going to hear it. If they don't want to, they're not ready, they're not going to hear it. I got that. I understand. I'm wondering if, from your experience, you could relate to us what truths actually work. Statistically speaking, what truths get through the most? Because I'm a pretty simple person, I think, myself. I break things down tactically to really, quick, simple, hey, this is the fact.
Yes.
For the last 50 plus years, whatever it's been, the black community as a whole hasn't gotten any economically better. And you've been listening to who to get this done for you, and it's not done yet? I mean, that's pretty simple truth to me that should wake some people up to understand that they can't keep voting for the same kinds of people that keep them in the same place that they've been for decades.
The truth is, you can't plan what you're going to say when it comes to truth. You can't change another person's heart by giving them stats. You have to allow God to give you the words to say in the situation. And that's what would bring on the change. You trust that he would give you what to say. I said to white Americans prior to voting for Barack Obama, some of them voted for Obama, I said, you're not going to change black Americans' mind about racism by giving them a physical thing. You got to change their hearts. You got to tell them what's really wrong. But a lot of them didn't believe it. When President Bush was in office, 30% of black Americans thought that America was a racist society. Now it's over 50%. They got worse rather than getting better because their hearts are still resentful and they have a lot of hatred in their hearts. You got to deal with that. You got to let them know, I'm not your problem. If you get married, fathers and mothers guide their children, and father help teach them how to do a business or start a business, teach you how to save. That's your problem. You don't need government. But don't plan what you're going to say. Just let God work through you, and that's where the change will come. Everybody and their mama go to church. They raise holy hands. They hoop and holler and shout. They don't know God. They know about him, but they don't know him. And that's what the problem is. It's a moral issue. It's not a physical issue.
Thank you, sir. Listening to you today, these guys who I've been in the meeting, the Tea Party, have been hearing the same thing from me for a long time now. But you've got this question about what you're going to do out here. What he's telling you is the truth. It's not going to be easy. From this perspective of a person of color who's saying what he's saying to other people around me, I get the same thing.
Yeah.
You have got to have the strength to stand there and say the truth and keep saying it.
Yes.
And not let them push you into reacting or anger. Just tell the truth, and if they don't listen, thank you, and turn around and leave.
That's all.
There's nothing else you can do about it. There is no silver bullet for doing this. But you're here today, and we had this because we needed to start the dialogue somewhere, somehow, now. You have to then go out and have the courage to stand up and say, that's not true.
Right.
But doing it in a way that is not, I'm going to push you over the edge or I'm angry with you, it's not true. And here's why. But you've got to educate yourself as well and not do it out of anger, out of resentment, to do it with love. And if you don't have God in your life when you're leading it, you're going to get pushed over the edge. I'm done.
And when you say with love, I just want to really say, I'm not talking about the kind of love that makes you feel good, you're up and down emotionally. I'm talking about love that there's no feeling that come with it. You can't touch, taste, or feel it. God is your life. It's a light unto your feet. It's given to you by God. So when your enemy is mad at you, just tell your enemy the truth as it is given to you, and then you're done with it. And God would do the rest. I've had several people, many people over the years, but recently, black people have called my radio show who are diehard Democrats and liberals who have just heard me speak, and I've dealt with them on my show, and they have switched parties already. They went from Democrat to Republican Party because they like the platform. And so just put the truth out there and just tell the truth. And don't force it. If they don't like it, fine. It's not your job to make them receive it. You have a job as a son of God to put it out there.